All right, guys, listen up. This is something really interesting. We always talk about philosophy, ethics, consciousness, all that deep stuff. But today, I stumbled on something that I think a lot of people don't really talk about in the mainstream, and that's this, how Islam talks about kindness to animals. Yeah, you heard that right. A major world religion, followed by over 1 billion people, has a whole system of rules and ethics, not just about humans, but about how you treat animals. And it blew my mind when I first started reading about it because, dude, it's actually way ahead of its time. Like, we're talking 1400 years ago, and they were making rules about animal welfare when people didn't even have the concept of animal rights. So let's dive in. I want to break this down the way I usually do. Real talk, no nonsense, pulling in history, philosophy, and some science too. Because let's face it, the way we treat animals says a lot about us as humans, right? And Islam takes that seriously. So let's start from the basics. One, the foundation. What does Islam say about animals? First off, let's establish this. Islam isn't just a religion of rituals, it's a whole way of life. And animals, they're a big part of it. The Quran, that's the holy book, doesn't just mention animals casually. It literally has chapters named after animals. Like there's a chapter called Al-Baqarah, which means the cow, another one called En-Nahl, the bee, and even one named after an ant, En-Naum. Now think about that for a second. A religious text dedicating entire sections to animals. That's like giving animals a seat at the table of cosmic importance. Here's the kicker. The Quran says, animals are communities like you. Let me repeat that. Communities like us humans. They eat, they live, they form social structure. And that's wild because it mirrors what biologists say today about animal societies, whether it's wolves, dolphins, elephants, you name it. So from the get-go, Islam establishes this framework. Animals matter. They're not just resources. They're part of the grand design, part of creation, and they have a purpose. And humans, we're caretakers. That's the big thing. In Arabic, they call humans qadifa, like guardians of the earth. So if you're messing up animals' lives, you're basically failing your cosmic job description. Two, mercy is the core principle. One of the things that stood out to me is the word Rama in Arabic. Mercy. It's everywhere in Islamic teachings. And that mercy, it's not just for humans. It extends to animals too. There are sayings of Prophet Muhammad, and this guy lived in the desert, 7th century Arabia, when resources were scarce and survival was tough, and even then, he was talking about animal welfare. Like, check this out. There's this story where a woman gave water to a thirsty dog, and the prophet said she was forgiven for all her sins because of that one act of kindness. Think about how big that is. A simple act, giving water to an animal, elevates you spiritually. That tells you something about priorities, man. And on the flip side, there's another story where a woman was punished because she locked up a cat, didn't feed it, and didn't let it hunt. So Islam is not playing around with this. It's like you treat animals like that's on you in the afterlife. That's heavy. 3. Rights of animals in Islam, way before modern animal rights. Now let's talk about rules, because this is where it gets interesting. Today, we have animal rights activists fighting for humane treatment, and they're doing good work. But imagine this, Islam had laid down some of these principles centuries ago. You can't harm animals for no reason. You can't overwork them. Like if you've got a camel or a horse, you can't overload it. You can't torture them, obviously. If you're going to slaughter for food, there's a humane method. Quick, minimal pain, and you can't kill one animal in front of another because that causes distress. Dude, that's insane for the 7th century. Because back then, nobody was thinking about animal psychology or ethics. This was hardcore survival mode. And yet, here's this religious system saying, hey, even your goat deserves dignity. That's like light years ahead. We didn't have PETA, we didn't have animal shelters, but Islam had rules, man. Clear guidelines. And the reasoning is fascinating. It's all tied to accountability. In Islam, you're accountable for everything you do, even how you treat a bird. Like there's this saying that a person will be questioned about how they treated the animals under their care. That's deep accountability. Joe Rogan commentary. Why this matters today. Okay, so why am I geeking out about this? Because look around, man. We're in an age where factory farming is a thing. Billions of animals living in brutal conditions so we can have cheap. And then you look at Islamic guidelines, and it's like they predicted this ethical mess centuries ago. Imagine if everyone followed those principles. No overstuffed feedlots, no chickens in cages the size of an iPhone, just fair treatment, respect for life. Because here's the thing, you don't have to be vegan to care about animal welfare. Islam allows meat, sure, but with conditions that make sense, conditions that actually prevent suffering. And here's another angle. Studies show that being kind to animals is linked to empathy in humans. So when a system encourages that, it's creating better humans overall. That's powerful. And Islam bakes that into its core. It's not an afterthought, it's fundamental. Modern research says animals feel pain, emotions, even grief. Elephants mourn their dead, dogs get depressed, and guess what? Islamic teachings already considered animals as beings with feelings. That's why cruelty was banned. When Prophet Muhammad said, "Do not make living beings your targets," that's like saying, don't hunt for sport, don't kill for fun. Dude, this was 1,400 years ago. And now in 2025, we're debating trophy hunting and whether it's ethical. It's crazy how advanced that thinking was. And this isn't just about ethics, it ties into sustainability too. Treat animals well, and you treat the environment well. Overworking animals, factory farming, all that stuff wrecks ecosystems. So this isn't just religion, it's ecology and ethics combined. Personal reflection, why it hits home. I gotta be honest, when I first read about this, it messed with my head, because I grew up thinking religion was mostly about rituals, prayers, that sort of thing. And then you see this holistic system, caring for animals, protecting the environment, treating nature with respect. And then I thought about modern life. We're in this weird place where people buy designer pets, but don't care about industrial animal suffering. We've disconnected from nature. And maybe that's why depression and anxiety are through the roof. We're out of balance. Islam says, restore that balance. And a big part of that is showing mercy, not just to people but to every living thing. That resonates, man. That's something everyone can learn from, believer or not. Alright guys, welcome back. In part one, we broke down the foundation, what Islam actually says about animals, why mercy is such a huge deal, and how this religion was setting animal welfare rules centuries before anybody else even thought about it. Now in this part, we're going to take it deeper. We're talking real life examples, stuff that shows how these principles were lived out, not just written in some book. We're going to talk about the Prophet Muhammad himself, his companions, and some crazy stories that sound like they came from a modern animal rights documentary, and then we'll connect this to the modern world. How can these ancient principles fix today's problems? How does kindness to animals affect your own brain and well-being? This is where it gets mind-blowing. The Prophet's personal example, walking the talk. So here's what stood out to me when I dug into this. Prophet Muhammad didn't just say, be kind to animals. He lived it. And these weren't times of comfort. This was the desert. Food was scarce. People were in survival mode. If there was ever a time to treat animals as disposable, that was it. And yet, here's what you find. He said, whoever shows mercy, even to a sparrow, Allah will show mercy to him. That's deep because it links your spiritual state to how you treat the smallest creature. He literally forbade harming animals for sport. He said, do not take any living thing as a target. Imagine that. Today we debate hunting for fun. He shut it down 1,400 years ago. There's this one story where he saw a camel crying because its owner overworked it. The Prophet went to the owner and said, fear God regarding these animals that cannot speak. Think about that. He's basically saying just because they can't talk back doesn't mean they don't feel pain. That's empathy at a level most humans still struggle with. And here's another one. He saw a nest of baby birds, and someone had taken them away. The mother bird was flying around in distress. He said, who caused this bird this pain? Return her babies. That's not just kindness, that's recognizing animal emotion. The woman and the dog, a lesson for all time. I know I mentioned this in part one, but it's worth unpacking because it says so much about values. There's a famous story about a woman with a messed up life. She sees a thirsty dog, climbs down a well, fills her shoe with water, and gives it to the dog, and because of that one act, she was forgiven. Now think about it. This isn't just a feel-good story, it's a statement. Your character is revealed in how you treat the powerless. And who's more powerless than a stray dog in the desert? Flip that coin and you've got the opposite story. A woman starves a cat to death, and the prophet says she's punished for it. So the system works both ways. Mercy brings you up, cruelty drags you down. Animals have rights, not just lip service. What's wild is how structured this is. Islam doesn't just say, be nice, it sets rules. If you own an animal, feeding it is your obligation. If you can't, set it free. You can't kill animals for sport or fun. Even during war, you can't harm animals unnecessarily. Dude, that's next level. Most armies today still ignore that. You can't brand animals on the face or mutilate them. That was a common practice back then. Islam said no. You can't kill an animal in front of another animal because it causes distress. That's like acknowledging animal psychology 1400 years before science did. What does this tell you? That animal welfare isn't a side topic in Islam. It's baked into the whole system, and the reasoning is fascinating. Everything is God's creation, so you respect it. Not worship it, but respect it. 4. Fast forward to today. Why we need this more than ever. Alright, let's bring this into 2020. Billions of animals living in hellish conditions. Industrial fishing destroying oceans. Trophy hunting for Instagram likes. We've built a system that treats life like a product, and it's biting us back. Pandemics, environmental collapse, mental health crises. Now imagine if we applied those old-school Islamic principles today. No overloading animals, no cruelty, no killing for fun, meat only when necessary, and done in the most humane way possible. That changes everything. It makes the system more sustainable. And here's the kicker. When you start treating animals better, you treat the planet better. Less factory farming means less methane, less deforestation, less climate chaos. So this isn't just about animals, it's about us surviving as a species. Science meets spirituality. What happens when you show kindness? This part blew my mind. There's actual research showing that when you're kind to animals, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Your stress goes down, your empathy goes up. Basically, being nice to animals makes you a better human neurologically. So when the prophet said mercy brings you closer to God, maybe that's also biology talking. Maybe the spiritual and the scientific are two sides of the same coin. That's crazy cool, man. And there's another layer. Kids who grow up caring for animals tend to be more empathetic adults. That means a society that values animal welfare is a society with less violence overall. That's not religion, that's sociology. Joe Rogan's big takeaway. So here's where I land on this. You don't have to be Muslim to appreciate this wisdom. This is universal. It's about respect, balance, and recognizing that life is interconnected. Islam isn't saying animals are God. It's saying they're part of the system, and you're responsible for how you treat them. That's a heavy responsibility. And honestly, it's something modern humans need to hear. Because right now, we're failing that test big time. You want to be a better person? Start with the little thing. Feed a stray. Don't buy from companies that torture animals. Reduce waste. All that stuff adds up. And if you're spiritual, you know it's even bigger. It affects your soul, man. So yeah, that's what blew me away. A 1400-year-old teaching that could literally save the world if we listened to him. That's why I think this topic deserves more attention. Because kindness, it's not just a feeling, it's a responsibility.